Hi everyone, this is Dragon GY. This is the operator hindsight for Necross, aka Ablana. I know you guys prefer Ablana as a name, but for people who are not as familiar with the story, I'm just gonna stick with Necross. Let's get started. Necross is a 6-star Shapecaster in the Caster class. Trait of the archetype deals odds damage and can create summons by defeating enemies, and can attack enemies blocked by this summons. So if enemies are blocked outside of their original range by the summon, Necross will be able to attack them. This is a relatively new archetype introduced about 3 months ago with Techno. It should be easy to see that they are also a derivative from the core caster archetype, very similar numbers with higher max HP stats. Their key feature is spawning summons from fallen enemies, so a new summoner that summons passively. Necross is talent 1. When an enemy within range is defeated, summons a Servant of Lamentation up to 3. If additional ones cannot be summoned, upgrades a Servant instead, which increases their block, max HP, attack, and defense. So although the trait says that they summon via defeating enemies, the talent insists that they only need to be defeated in range, not necessarily by Necross. This is the same for Techno, so thank God it starts with a QOL. Let's take the summon mechanics first. It ignores invisibility. Basically, if an enemy dies in range, a summon will spawn and will prioritize spawning on where the enemy was defeated. If that tile is undeployable or when the summon action is done via means other than defeating an enemy, it will instead be spawned on a random tile in range while prioritizing ones that have enemies on them. One key behavior of summons is that they always face the same direction as Necross. More to follow on that. Now, for the upgrade mechanic, if a new summon action cannot happen, either due to no available tiles or when the 3 summon cap is reached, an upgrade action will take place instead. Besides upgrading, the upgraded target will also be healed for 100% of its max HP, basically refreshing the HP bar. And this healing will take place even when a summon has been upgraded, so it's actually an upgrade plus healing 2 in 1. Very user-friendly consideration. An upgraded summon will have a purple glowing visual effects on the sword so you can tell the progress. On upgrade, the summon gets its max HP and attack doubled, defense plus 40% and block plus 1. For upgrade priority, it's non-upgraded first, then the ones with the lowest HP, then taunt level, or you can say the one summoned last. Here's the set for base and upgraded summon. Notice that their attack range is 4 tiles adjacent to them, so although their facing direction is fixed, that usually wouldn't matter outside of skill 3, which we will dive into later. Summon quality is pretty okay. They have a similar build to Swordmaster with higher max HP and resistance. They deal odds damage, and for the pros and cons, it's more of a comparison with summoners. Summons don't cost additional DB and is not limited by redeployment time. Although they are empty still, they can be sustained and replenished by defeating more enemies. But on the flip side, if there are not enough enemies, for example high quality but low quantity situations, they will be at a disadvantage. They also cannot designate a deploy position and direction like summoners do, limited to only their own range. Therefore, most of the time, besides the key targets, Necross would love to have some degree of mob waves that comes along, which is important sustaining power for her gameplay loop. Talent 2, when Necross and her summons attack an enemy below 50% HP, attack increases to 140%. The threshold goes up to 60% and the scale increases to 145% at potential 3. This is a very simple but effective talent. It helps her rip enemies faster, thus more efficient summon spawning or sustaining. Basically strengthening the gameplay loop we just mentioned, comes with pretty good coverage as well. Necross is getting her module in about 3 months alongside the release of Tragoedia. Trait update, attack increased to 115% when attacking enemies blocked by summons. Talent upgrade goes to Talent 1. Summons can now be spawned from her summons range with level 3, and she'll get 10 seconds of attack plus 25% from enemies being defeated in her or summons range. Base effect introduces a new attack scale, which Necross already has a lot, so it further improves her damage potential and her gains from attack buffs. For upgrades, allowing summons to spawn from summons range is an important QOL, and the attack increase that comes alongside it is the only attack modifier in her own kit, and will further boost her damage potential. So in summary, this is a damage boost plus mechanic update module. For the damage part, it brings buffs to multiple skills which combine for a final increase to skill 3 damage by 54.96%. Sure, most of these skills are conditional, but you'll get at least 1 or 2 of them active most of the time. It also optimizes use experience because it is very common that summons block enemies outside of Necros' range. While she can still attack them, without module level 3, a summon doesn't spawn from that kill, but level 3 would scavenge that kill, which is very crucial. There is a special interaction here that I want to stress again though. So there exists a behavior not related to the module that the special summon in skill 3 will have its attack range reduced and fixed to just the one tile in front of it during its own skill, as opposed to the adjacent 4 tile. The extended reach from its own upgrades also doesn't change this. So although it will drill ahead of itself, the module wouldn't spawn any summon from the kills unless it happened in that exact one tile in front of the summon. The tiles to the sides behind the summon doesn't work, even though the summon will be able to damage enemies in these tiles when it blocks them. This sucks a lot and honestly makes the module less impactful than it could have been. That's a pity for sure, but I would still recommend level 3 for maximizing her damage and improving her use experience. For skill recommendation, my take is skill 3 over skill 1 over skill 2. Skill 3 is a fast cycling burst damage skill that in itself already deals great damage, while featuring a special summon that packs extra offensive and defensive power, dominating one lane defenses. Skill 1 is a short cycle AoE skill that can manage terrains that feature 2 lanes of enemies. Skill 2 can disable and lock down key enemies with sleep and damage over time. Generating more summons from fewer target count is its main calling. Skill 1 passive effect, each summon deals 450% attack as art damage to all nearby enemies when summoned or upgraded. When used, immediately refreshes all summons. If none is on the field, summons one summon instead. This is a A/13 manual skill. Stats are shown in the table. It's in Talent 2 not triggered versus triggered, and you can clearly tell that Talent 2 is a very significant part to her damage. Module stats will include the base and upgrade effects, both being effective, so you'll see a big jump up as well. This is the max total damage, which means 6 explosions from the passive effect when used. So, the explosions will happen on summon spawn and upgrade, and also the resummon on active use, which is the point of that action. However, if all summons have been upgraded, then the healing action on subsequent defeat will not trigger explosions. When resummoning on active use, it follows the same logic as Talent 1, and you can see each summon and upgrade as one stack of her progress for up to 6 explosions. Using this logic, if you have a level 1 summon and a level 2 summon before resummoning, you'll end up with 3 level 1 summons after. Explosions have a 1.5 radius and can hit aerial enemies, but they may miss targets entirely if they are blocked outside of Necros' range, because she will then resummon on random tiles. A little niche detail here is that the resummon has a 0.1 second interval between each summon, until reaching the 3 summon cap or the number of defeated enemies recorded. So if you care, and is fast enough with your hands, you can pause retreat over and over to take advantage of killing multiple enemies in one skill. It's used in some runs, but not a very practical and necessary thing to do. For applications, basically what skill 3 is weaker at, which is holding 2 lane choke points. It uses the frequent AoE to dispose mob-focused enemy compositions and defend these choke points. Preferably, these are not 2 separate lanes because enemies can then converge and take multi-explosions. Sometimes it also involves manual retreat in between skills when all summons are upgraded to facilitate more explosions. Limitation mostly lies in 2 parts. One, summon quality. So if there are tougher enemies that quickly one-shots them or don't die even after 2 skill uses, it's not likely gonna work. And besides situations where you just have to use her for 2 lanes, this skill is usually a downgrade from skill 3. Skill 2 puts up to 2 enemies in range into sleep, dealing 160% of attack as art damage to the target every 0.5 seconds. If the target is defeated during the skill, summons 2 additional summons from it. This is a 14/20 12-second skill. Total damage and DPS is okay. For mechanics, first of all, thank God sleep immune targets can still take the damage even after walking out of range. This is because the skill adopts a capture targeting mechanic, similar to Rosa's skill 3, where the skill will end immediately if all the captured targets are defeated or become untargetable in its duration instead of having to wait for the entire skill duration to run out. It can also be interrupted by statuses like stun, freeze, and silence. The extra summon from kill also follows the same logic as Talon 1, so you get 1 plus 2, 3 summons from 1 kill. Its design principle is pretty clear, spawns many summons from very little targets. So contrary to skill 1, this skill is for when dealing with batches of 1 to 2 higher quality enemies. The crowd control is easy to apply, lasts long enough to protect yourself and summons from enemies' attacks. But in practice, this skill does have the most limited applications due to several problems. 1. No target priority, and it doesn't lock onto your supposedly more threatening enemies, so unlike how Shaper casters would usually prefer, she doesn't want more mobs with this skill. 2. Summons do not target, let alone focus fire on slept enemies. Obviously, they don't block them either, because slept enemies are unblockable, so the module-based effect is also irrelevant with this skill. And even in a sleep CC composition, she doesn't target enemies that are already slept, so she's not a damage dealer in this system. How about as a sleep provider? Well, unfortunately that part already runs pretty well with Kafka and Black Knight. Both of them do AoE sleep, so Necrosis' 2 target count is not a big improvement even with the long control time. A special application, I guess, that may be relevant to some of you is that this skill is actually one of the best football driving skill in Icebreaker games due to the targeting mechanic that allows her to stay locked on the target, and she can even control the opposing player while at it. Skill 3 passive effect changes one summon into special form, which can only be upgraded through using skill, and can be upgraded up to 6 times. When used, immediately deals 800% of attack as arch damage to all enemies within a marksman range, then consumes a normal summon to upgrade the special one, and restores 20% of its max HP, doubled if the consumed summon is upgraded. This process will be repeated 3 times. This is a 5/16 manual skill, and you can find the numbers in the table here, which are all decent considering this is a 16 SP skill. Mind you, this is just the number from the cross, and we also have to dig into the summon. The special summon doesn't have a standalone stats build, instead it starts by getting modifier boost to all the base summon stats, so that will be 3 times the base max HP and attack, twice the defense and resistance, with the interval extended to 2.5 seconds as a compensation. The final base stat for the special summon is shown on the right. The special summon cannot be upgraded via Talon 1 as specified, instead only upgrades by consuming other base summons that can spawn alongside it with Necrosis' active skill use. For each upgrade, it further gains 80% more max HP and attack, 40% more defense. These are calculated additively with the base boost, so basically at full upgrade, which is shown on the right, it's 680% more max HP and attack, 340% more defense than the base form, the very standard ones. What this entails is that if they get attribute level buffs like Thorn's Altar skill 1 giving 200 flat defense, it will be boosted by 4.4 times and translates to a 880 defense buff for the fully upgraded special summon. But on the flip side, when met with flat decreases like CC risks or corrosion burst, which reduces base defense by 100, the final result will be minus 440 defense. Other than the usual 3 stats, the special summon will additionally gain block +1 and skill range +1 on the 3rd and 6th upgrade. So looking at the final number, this is an ultimate stat stick. Its skill and initial range can be found below as well, a 23k damage skill that reaches up to 4 tiles with just a 15-second cooldown is also kind of crazy. When upgrading and healing, this skill will prioritize consuming base summon that is spawned first. Consuming an upgraded base summon will upgrade and heal the special summon twice. For Necrosis herself during the skill, the first thing to learn is that it has a 1.4 second startup before the first damage applies. It is a very important part to get used to in order to correctly time a kill on a desired tile. After the first hit, there will be a 48 frame interval between the two subsequent damage. After each damage, there is also a 30 frame window before a base summon is consumed, and it will upgrade and heal the special summon on the next frame. This is basically a grace period designed so that summons can spawn from the damage during this time before getting consumed. And do note that both of these time windows, which is mentioned, shown as purple arrows in the diagram below, will be shortened under attack speed buffs because this skill is mechanically a modified attack pattern. So under high attack speed, you will see Necros snapping her fingers extra fast. It usually wouldn't impact spawning and consuming summons until under crazy attack speed. By default though, the whole skill will last for about 5.6 seconds before Necros exits the SP lockout, making the full cycle about 21.6 seconds. There are a couple of other miscellaneous mechanics. First, while the special summon can damage a target blocked from behind with its skill, Necros can do that with her skill. The target has to be in the 3x4 range. During skill, summons can be spawned on the 2 extra tiles of the extended attack range and will continue to stay there if it's the special summon. Generally wouldn't recommend letting that happen though. For applications, this is a pretty unique lane holding skill that packs both offensive and defensive power. The special summon, like we said, has Martial skill 2 level of attack, Albion skill 3 level of max HP, 6-star Protector Module X level of defense, and 20 resistance, sustained by percentage healing similar to Holder skill 1. This thing is a brick wall that bites. It's also comboed with fast cycling skills from both Summon and Necros, so it's highly oppressive in one-laned choke points and stages. Speaking of skill, it also provides bursts of AoE arts damage with a really comfortable cycle. Necros plus the special summon deals up to 60k arts damage, averaging at Dagon Brush's skill 3 level at just 15 to 16 second cooldowns, so that in itself is already a huge advantage in the caster department. So this skill is really about lane holding arts damage that can actually block. Over the last year, we have Logo skill 1, Martial skill 2, those are all ranged skills without a block, so this skill works more like penance, I'd say. Next, I'll discuss about the limitations of this skill, and while this skill is packed with mental numbers, its inherent mechanics kinda held it back. Number 1 is about its dependency on terrain. Remember we said that summons facing direction is fixed to be the same as Necros's. That wasn't a problem for skill 1 and skill 2 because normal summons have an adjacent 4-tower attack range anyways. But when it comes to the special summon, while it has the same standard range, the range of the skill, which needless to say is an important part of its ability, is drilling forward for up to 3 tiles in front. And in practice, a lot of the time you'll have to give up either part of Necros' skill range or the special summon's reach. Second is that available ground tiles must present in range for spawning normal summons in order to upgrade and sustain the special summon. These problems combined creates rigidness in gameplay and significantly impacts her versatility. These are some of the common situations that you can run into playing different maps. 1. Double lanes with parallel going range tiles. While it's okay for Necros to cover both with her range, the special summon will then have to face the other lane instead of where the enemies are coming from. This is not mentioning the unstable block on the other lane due to the consuming mechanic. 2. Range tiles that are diagonal to choke points. In this case, you may have to either have both Necros and the summon face away from where enemies are coming, or have the summon drill into a wall. And finally, choke points terrains that feature limited deployable melee tiles. You have to consider situations where other melee operators may have to take up some spots. In practice, it can get even more complicated. Sometimes you have a lot of enemies or other damage sources that may interfere with the kill timing, and the special summon may spawn on unintended locations. Similar situations when the special summon dies midway, it gets kinda tricky to respawn it on the location. Also, summon being close to Necros herself may cause her to take splash damage, while being further away may cause difficulty spawning summons, since enemies are likely gonna die outside of her range, and this was a significant problem before her module, and a big reason why I recommend unlocking the module when it releases later. And from that, We can say that Necroz's own survival is also a key factor of her strength. She's more likely to get involved in collateral damage than summoners. Again, while the special summon is really tough, can take on elite and even boss level enemies, in order to upgrade and more importantly sustain it, you again need additional feed of enemies. And the thing with her is that the more complete your team is, the less impactful she generally becomes, similar to summoners, although I'd say she's much better due to the summons not taking up deployment slots. Some of her usual synergies, if you need sustain for her, I'd again recommend Thorn's Altar skill 1, who's also gonna help with the special summon sustain and toughen it up at the same time. Necroz also benefits from attack buffs quite a lot for all the scaling she has. Skadi Altar skill 2 would be a suitable choice. In summary, Necroz is a 6-star caster that leaps up to her Neo Summoner design. She's a burst arts damage dealer who also utilizes melee summons that's decent in lane holding. They have good quality and a proper sustain mechanic to keep them up. Her skills have different summons and damage logic that caters to different situations. In particular, skill 3 provides a super high quality summon with AoE burst arts damage under short cycles. The stats are really good, but the inherent mechanics do make her rather terrain and enemy dependent. For performance, she's really good at defending and dominating one lane choke points found in literally any map. In fact, Necroz has multiple low ops or solo records under her belt, and is currently ranked 3rd in the number of exclusive solo records after Link and Viscidel. And many maps that Necroz can solo and Link can't is because of early enemies rushing towards the objective, where Link don't have enough DP for the first summon. Necroz, on the other hand, can fare much better with skill 1 or skill 3 depending on the terrain. Other than that, I'll keep that football player Nokia for whoever's concerned. The next Icebreaker game should come in the same patch, but for the next one it has been announced that football match will be replaced by rowing, so it's not really a big application. For my final verdict on her rating, I have her as 7 for daily. She's overall easier to utilize than summoners, her cycle time makes big room for error, and when you see a single lane, just put her there, it's that simple. What's not simple is the potential terrain or enemy composition that may work against her, and it does take some practice and sometimes luck to get her summoned to spawn at the right tile. So unfortunately, some of these mechanics just make her not that easy to use. But when she works, her effectiveness is not to be underestimated, and this is the major reason for her being at 7. You'll be surprised at how much of a stat stick her summon is, and that she can actually deal a good amount of damage as well. Again, when it doesn't work, unfortunately. Advanced at 5, still the same reason for her daily presence. I guess you can put some of her performances in low ops clears here. You can see her as a very good enmity unit with an operation core that needs to be sustained. And from the standard of enmity unit, she's pretty serviceable in harder content. In IS, I say she's at the level of playable as a starter, but gets less and less impactful as you progress and gather a more complete roster. She's used in IS-5 because 1, she can be a starter and she can actually help hold the line while dealing with the Spike of Epoch with skill 1. 2, if you play Lamp of Wishes, Shaper Caster alongside Mystic Caster are the only 2 archetypes that are not associated with a Hand Relic in Caster, so it helps with the progress, but she's not really doing much in late and endgame. Following that, not much performance in IS-6 either. It's more friendly to summons, yes, but mostly the actively deployed ones. In debuff game modes, all enemies become stronger, so it gets harder for her to take advantage of trash mobs as well. While she can hold up to trim metal level difficulty, the way that debuffs are calculated may cause her summons to lose a lot of the stats as introduced earlier. The formula does change a little bit in CCB 4 though, and you can see her holding down the major lane in some runs at the 620 mark. Overall, Necroz is decent in terms of damage and cycles. There's a little story behind this in case you don't know. So started from this version back in CN, they began rolling out 6-star operator previews like how they would do in live streams before the limited event. And from the showcase, players were quickly able to deduce exact numbers of Necroz, and the overall consensus at that time was that Necroz were not good enough. The discussion was very heated and eventually Necros was tuned before it even hits the live server. For context, her attack attribute was increased by about 120, and if you compare her base attack with Techno, there's a huge gap. Her talent 2 scaled from 125% to 145%, skill 3 SP from 25 down to 16, the special summon max upgrade requirement from 8 times down to 6 times, a major boost to the base number, and summon skill SP requirement down from 35 to 15. These are just the main points, not all of them. So yeah, Necros was perhaps one of the most special releases they've ever done, and she basically started the train of these upcoming giants that pack a lot of never before seen mechanics and solid numbers. I think the pros and cons are laid out quite extensively from the video. When she works decent. When she doesn't work, there's very little you can do about it. While Necros is just in this serviceable situation for schedule and meta, I do want to point out that in about 6 months, you will have Hoshigama Alter, who has very similar functions to Necros. Arts damage, block, sustain, AoE, range advantage. I wouldn't say Hoshigama Alter is a complete upgrade, but I can see people prioritizing limited units. And again, I think I've been saying this for months, really great operators on their way, or to be precise, starting from next month, and you'll get a glimpse of it starting from this page. Honestly, with the current trend, it's getting more and more difficult to give out these ratings. It doesn't even feel right to give numbers that are below 7. And some of the adjustments you see here are to further create some gap between some of them, I guess. But to be absolutely frank, all of these operators are so exceptionally good that I said any of them would be an upgrade to your current 12 Ops team. We still don't know if that Necros preview video was the Pandora's box that leads to this trend, but do make your plans because a new era of statistical and mechanical evolution is upon us. That's gonna do it for this episode. I've heard that the next banner will start almost right after Necros, which is crazy to think about. As always, thank you all for your enormous support. See you guys in the next one. Bye bye.